And when Alan cuts up next year, he's still behind.
Yeah.
What?
You're separating your.
Can't learn.
Yeah.
Six, you would please join me in the honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jennifer. We do have a fantastic day here. Before you go on, I do want to thank Sean, Randy, all the managers and directors for bringing us to this point. There's been a lot of work involved, a lot of discussion. I also say this, kind of just say the component of the report. We're not in a rush to adopt the budget today. I think that's clear. I know what we expect is just to receive information and they give you direction, high level, and they would support there. So I'm very excited about it's all today. Today, but I think just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. And we have a lot of people about the room, so for council, people speak up loud to everybody. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Nancy Bosco.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We are excited to be here to talk about the budget. We also want to echo the thank yous to you all, because we know that you took a lot of time to go through the budget documentation. I think it's a 200+ page book, so we know it's taken a big effort to get through that. We also thank you for taking the time to do the one-on-one meetings with the staff. I think those were very productive for us to better prepare for today. So we've got a plan to go through a slideshow. It looks like more than the slides are all integrated, so we're not going to hit every one of them separately. We'll have a slideshow. Then we have included a budget activity. So it will be similar to what you all did. Capital project activity. We felt like that was a good way to build consensus. So we're going to attempt to do a budget activity to see within a couple teams if we can build consensus and what we're going to do. To Mayor's point, we are happy to receive consensus and decisions today. We still have time, and we can talk about next steps at the end of the meeting. So if we're ready, we'll dive into the slideshow.
What is our staff on these slide questions along the way? Or along the way?
All right, turn it over to Jessica.
Today we're going to hit on all of our major funds as well as some of our special funds. And then, as Randy said, we'll hop into that. So our total town budget is $264 million, 124.6 million in the general fund, 3.7 million in the stormwater fund, 70.6 million in the electric fund, and 35.6 in water sewer. And then we have 29.4 for our non-major fund as well as debt. So looking at the general fund, that budget is an 8.26% increase from the FY26 amended budget. And on our expenditure side, personnel is overwhelmingly a major cost, as it is for all local governments. And then just that our capital this year has risen back to that 12%. So just looking at the revenues a little closer, ad valorem taxes is increasing based on the increased rate recommendation. The 12% increase in other taxes and licenses, majority of that is from sales tax. It's just over a 3% increase from our year-end estimates for how we're going to finish in FY26, because we're up about 7% year over year. In terms of unrestricted intergovernmental, that's up 12.8%. A lot of that is due to the utility franchise tax that we receive. That is performing very well. In terms of restricted intergovernmental, so a lot of that is transit, and our program has grown this year, so that revenue source has grown as well. The permits and fees, that is down 5.7% this year. That's trending with our permit numbers as well. And just based on a 3-year analysis, that is kind of where those lines are heading. Sales and services, this makes up a lot from Parks and Rec and our yard waste program. So bringing the yard waste up to 100% cost recovery is part of that increase, but Our parks programming and rentals is up about 17% year over year. So those revenues are showing in that 10% increase. Interest rates are decreasing, which in terms of investment earnings for the money that we have, that is showing a decrease. We are using our transportation capital reserves this year to cover the annual pavement management program. So the increase in other financing sources is our transfer from the reserves back to the general fund. That is from our motor vehicle fee. So $5 of that lives in the general fund for transit, and the other 25 goes to reserves. So this is us utilizing those funds for pavement management. And then we have about $3 million for fund balance recommended.
In terms of the investment
Mhm.
revenues, you guys are going down by, a third. Interest rates are not going down by a third. So why are we kind of out of sync with the expected decline in revenue?
So I'm gonna call on you, John, because we had presented this a little bit in the February retreat about interest earnings are looking to go down almost 30% for some, and based on they're already down this current year. So that's also part of that decrease that we're seeing.
I guess probably the easiest thing is that our portfolio on our actual direct portfolio, the bonds and loans that we purchased into kind of unwound early last year, so the lower kind of build that back up. It's possible we have some room there, adjustments figures, but it is still, federal funds rate's gonna be a full basis point lower than those prior numbers, so.
Yeah, but again, a full basis point is not anywhere near 30%, right? So I think you're saying like it's a combination of having a lower balance that's accruing interest plus a lower rate is leading to 30% reduction.
For the property tax recommendation, for the FY27 budget is at 39.14 cents. That's 3.54 cents above the current year. And in the next slide, to dive into the bucket. So 1 cent was dedicated to public safety. This is 6 new patrol officers, a corporal, a special operations lieutenant, and all of their capital and operational equipment, and then the fire inspector as well. This adds an additional 1 cent allocation to the community investment fund to take it from 7 cents to 8 cents. And then 1 cent is for a fleet replacement program to get us up to the level of replacement we need to be addressing each year. So it's 25 police vehicle replacements, 4 parks and rec, and 1 fire vehicle. And then the final 0.54 cent was partially expansions in parks and rec programming and then smart cities projects.
So this chart will look familiar from the budget presentation. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but just wanted to point out the different cycles, right? We're all familiar with that now with evaluations and how you typically will see a drop, and then there's a little bit of an incline pattern every 4 years. We did want to highlight where we are post-reeval and how that compares to previous time periods. So you can see that's what's circled in yellow. And we can come back to this if there are questions. The next, these are some new charts because as we've heard other jurisdictions coming in, and then the comparison, okay, well, they're not coming down any, or they're not proposing anything. So there are a couple of things that are happening. Some of the jurisdictions are proposing their budgets with a gap and no solution proposed with that. We could have done that too and said, hey, we're not recommending raising the taxes. We just have an $8 million gap. So it's implied that you either have to cut or you have to raise taxes. So we went ahead and filled that gap and said, this is what it would take to fill that gap. So that's one point I wanted to make. The other, if you look at the chart on the left, there's a lot going on here, but this shows after the reval, we were the second highest drop from actual numbers. So this was a 10-cent drop. Garner was the only one that topped us at 10.7. When you look at in terms of percentage drop, we were the largest percentage drop after the reval. But Garner was a little bit higher in terms of they had a little more room to come down. So that's the chart on the left. It just shows you where we came down after the reval. On the right-hand side, you can see where we are post reval. We've come up from revenue neutral. This is in comparison to the revenue neutral point. So in fiscal year 25, we were about 13% above revenue neutral. And then fiscal year 26, it's 18, I think is what I'm reading there. Yeah, okay. 18%. So we've come up above some of the jurisdictions. This again, we think is in place. We've started to hear, and Jessica will talk about it on the next slide, but we've started to hear some jurisdictions are proposing some slight increases. But we're still, if you look at the numbers, some remained flat, but they were higher than us as well. And so we're trying to bring some perspective to the comparison when we look at other jurisdictions. Being at a much higher tax rate, they were able to stay flat, or they only came down 5%. I think there was one jurisdiction. We're back on the side. Zebulon actually went up after the reval. So they've got a little more room potentially in their budgets to play and hold the line. We gave a pretty significant, as a jurisdiction, gave a pretty significant reduction in tax rate post reval. So this is just more data points.
So can I react to this for a moment? Because I think this is good data, but it's also slightly misleading. Because this would lead one to believe that in absolute dollars, taxes actually go. That's not the case. Like we saw a big tax increase across the board last year following the reval. Yes, we dropped significance in terms of tax rate, but the net effect on the after property owner was still a significant increase. And so I appreciate offering some perspective, but what is more telling is the absolute dollars that they're basically the out of spend. Right, that's the that we're putting on. But again, like I appreciate the context, but I don't want to distract from the fact that we did significantly increase taxes last year, as a function of the email.
And I think it's a good point. And what we were speaking to is what we had impact on. So obviously we don't, as a jurisdiction, set those values, but we do set the tax rate. So we were trying to bring attention to what we as a jurisdiction impacted on. This one, this is the actual six. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is actual pennies. So the others spoke to percentages. So this takes the pennies and kind of puts in perspective where we've been since the reval and where the revenue neutral point is. So you can look at the raw data where everybody's gone since the reval. Actual pennies above the reval point, the neutral rate. Again, lots of data points to look at and see where we're sitting. We're not the lowest, but we are definitely in the lower third, maybe. So I had to cut that up a little bit. So pretty good perspective, given context. All right.
Right, so we've started to get some proposals around Wake County. Wake County is proposing a 2-cent increase. So is Fuquay, and Garner is proposing 2.5 cents increase. Roswell and Wake are staying flat, and we're also starting to see some municipalities presenting a gap that they have. So we calculated out what that difference would be if it's based on their gap, and so the gap that Morrisville presented was 1.75 increase, and so the 13 million for Raleigh, that's not their full gap, that is their absolute minimum. So we'll be getting more information next about a week and a half from now, but their absolute minimum is the 1.11 cents. So of those that have started proposing official tax rates, the average is sitting right around 2.15 cents. So looking at rates for the general fund, there's no change to solid waste or recycling for 2 years. And then our yard waste is increasing by $3.05 per month, and that will bring us to 100% cost recovery for that program. Some strategic goal alignment in the general fund for a welcoming community. We have Pleasant Park shade structures, Vision Zero traffic safety, and crosswalk beacon upgrades. For high performing government, we have some IT infrastructure, HR info modules for personnel management, and strategic plan refresh. For environmental leadership, we have automated side loaders to move our waste program to containerization, the Plant to Peak program, and our Impera energy management software. And then responsible development, our transit program has grown a lot this year. We have our annual pavement management program, and then our Campo. And then economic vitality, we have our state magazine feature, our economic incentives, and some CRM management software. Moving into the Affordable Housing Fund, the FY27 allocation is 3.8 million. It is a dedicated 1 cent of the tax rate allocation. However, 3.8 million is above 2 million. So that is because we are using fund balance this year. So our available fund balance is 5.3 million, and we are recommending using 1.7 million of fund balance for the Hughes Street. Looking at our debt service and community investments fund for FY27, the allocation is 16.4 million. That's 8 cents tax rate allocation, and that is an increase of 1 cent over FY26. So 10.1 million of that will be going for debt service payments, and the remaining 6.2 million will remain in the community investment fund for future debt service. This allocation sets up for the funding the 5-year CIP that was created in February. So just a quick recap on that. The projects in the column on the left, these were projects that when you all were split into 2 different groups that you both funded in your separate groups. So everybody had consensus on these, and then we filled the rest of, once we knew the dollar amount for all those projects, right, we filled up the rest of that initial 7 cent community investment fund allocation. So the middle projects are the ones that filled that, got us to that 7 cent point. And then the column on the right is the projects that were specifically chosen to use for the 1 cent increase. So for special appropriations this year, they will not appear in the budget book as an allocation. So we are doing $1 per capita, which is, so we're planning for 81,000, and our farmers market has also requested $20,000. So both of those appropriations will come out of our Bud Capital Fund. We had utilized the funds originally for offsetting public safety salaries during COVID, and so we still wanted to use that money for projects that aligned with the intention of ARPA funding. So one project that was specifically outlined was $500,000 for a nonprofit program, and so we are going to start utilizing that funding for the allocations this year. So.
Can I ask why we pulled the farmer's market out of the rest of the population?
You mean the regular budget?
Yeah.
No, because we felt like it fit under the criteria for ARPA. $5.41 for ARPA funding. We felt like this was property tax.
But the 81,000 also goes to now.
Right. Oh,
Why are we paying the farmer's market difference?
yeah. So I think because the request was positioned under economic development.
And that.
Yeah.
And I think the logic was, if this is a request that's made every year, it's a request that we fulfill every year. It essentially is a budget allocation to recognize.
They did, I believe,
They did
make
it.
an additional request out of nonprofit.
Because traditionally we have funded them at 10,000. 20,000 is more than what we traditionally.
It's varied over the years. I think at some point it was 20. It might have decreased when we started setting the dollar per capita. But last year is when it moved out of nonprofit funding into economic development.
It should have been 20 for a while.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
a 20 current,
Yeah.
for sure.
If it's for-
I'm not sure when the change was. It might have been a 10 at one point. I knew it historically it was 10, it was on 20. The moved economic development was approved by council last year. It was a proposal presented by the finance committee. The council approved the budget. But that's how it got into economic development, to free up funds for the nonprofit. That was the, oh,
Thank you.
So, we in total got $169,000 worth of requests, and, this year, the nonprofit funding program moved into, admin, and so Kendall and Celeste, created a team to review the, program and make recommendations as to what the funding should be. This was their recommendation, to Finance Committee, and Finance Committee also, approved this as their recommendation as well. Moving to stormwater, this fund is balanced at 3.7 million, a 4.16% decrease from the current year amended budget. There is no change in rates from the FY 26. Water sewer is 35.6 million, a 13.9% increase from the current year amended budget. And this budget includes 4% base rate and volumetric rate increases for both water and sewer. So our average resident is at 5,000 gallons per month, which is a $3.50 impact on the monthly.
On this point, just something I've always wondered, maybe I've actually asked. Our rates are different here, for water in particular. We share the same system. Why is that? Isn't there typically the same system, we want the same, like, we're cheaper than here,
Yeah.
wondering why. Well, how are we able to charge less?
you want to answer for you?
It's operational cost, I mean. Well, however, they may have different scaling, they may have different metering systems and we have whatever, but it's operational cost.
Could be salaries too.
We have a salary, benefits, whatever they're distributing across their cost. Yes, Jonathan.
I want to clarify this. We do share a facility, but our system.
So we do all the maintenance of once it comes through the meter vault, it's our system.
Okay.
We have our own ID number, water supply number. So at the vaults, it's no longer carried, it's 100% Apex.
Okay, so it's not accurate to say we share the same system, we share.
We share the same supply.
Pipes in the ground and all that stuff.
All the pipes inside of Apex belong to Apex.
Electric fund, that is 70.6 million. This is a 10.25% increase from the FY 26 amended budget. This includes a base rate and energy rate increase of 6.25%. And our average customer is at the 1150 mark, which is $10.26 per month. And we put our rates against Clayton, Wake Forest, and Duke Energy, and so we're still on that lower end than everyone else's so far. And this does not include Duke's potential 14 to 18% increases that they're looking at. This is just their current bills as is.
My favorite slide.
And this, you may have said it,
Yeah.
this is us indexing and the other jurisdictions, not just Duke, may also have increases.
That's correct. And yes, we have, this is Clayton and Wake Forest's current year because they had not proposed at the time that this was created. So this is their current year rates and we're still below that.
So when you may ask why we compare ourselves to those are also.
Those are also electric cities,
Yeah.
yep. So, some strategic goal alignment in the utility funds. We have our downtown watershed study, a pollinator education project, and backflow education under Welcome Community. The water quality analyzers, data system upgrades, and culvert replacement under high performing government. UV replacement, flow monitors, and stream stabilization under environmental leadership. Water line replacement, East Williams substation, and Jenks substation under responsible development. And then for economic vitality, we have electric system expansion, our Viridia expansion, and some sewer expansion. So we met with all of you individually over the past couple of weeks since the draft had been published. And so things we heard across all of those meetings were looking to lower the recommended tax rate, looking at additional or increased revenue opportunities, and evaluating expenditure reductions. So over these 2 weeks, we've also been, we've received some updated numbers for various revenues. For example, our fire Wake County cost share came in slightly higher than expected. So we've gotten some updated numbers. We have looked at the parks fee schedule changes, and we have updated those numbers accordingly. We've reviewed initial revenue projections as well. And then we've also reviewed departmental expenditures. One area that came up a lot in conversations was travel and training. And so through all of those updates, we have been able to get the recommended tax rate down to 3 degrees. So with a 3-cent tax rate increase, that would put us at 38.6 cents. And so this chart is updated with the 3-cent recommendation, which is a 31.71 cent monthly impact, or $380 per year for our average resident. And then all of the costs highlighted in gray, which are many, are the municipalities who have not officially presented. You'll notice most of water sewer, because a lot of people around Raleigh's water system are all gray. But without everybody's proposals, we sit right there at 4th. And we know that Raleigh and Morrisville have presented with gaps. So this isn't final by any means, but this we're within $100 of Raleigh and Cary and $200 from Morrisville. So
Can you go back on? But this is further down the list, the more expensive it comes to.
for the annual total, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the numbers you have from Morrisville and Raleigh do not reflect a
They
change.
do not reflect any change because they have not officially recommended a tax rate. So that's their current year information.
So it's us with the impact.
Yeah.
But the others not yet. So there's a potential we will climb.
Yeah.
On that list. In a good way, climb.
Yes.
Okay, that was a lot and that was quick, but hopefully paired with the one-on-ones and all the reading you all have been doing, we're good to go. We're making sense. Everybody feels good about the data that's been brought to you. So I think first we'd like to say if there are any questions on slides or data that we would go there. The next piece is we'd like to go into an activity where I talk about that. If there are any questions or if you want to have any discussion points. All right, so what we'd like to do is get into 2 groups. They're outlined above, the blue team and the green team. No significance to the color or why someone got somewhere. We just tried to divide people up. And we're going to get into those groups and do kind of what we did on the Capitol. We can get a consensus in that group, kind of debate through some items within each side. Then once each group comes to the closest they can come to consensus, we'll bring everybody back together and see how it meshes as a group. And then you can discuss and advocate and do your thing after that. Does that sound good? Okay, so.
Blue team will be in the back corner over here, and the green team will be right by Alan over there.
And each team will have administration represented there. You'll have a budget analyst with each team. We've got our leadership team in the back of the room as well. So you've got every resource that you could hopefully need is here. So if there are questions on any particular expenditure or project or whatever, we can engage with our team that's here. We'll work through it and see kind of, we didn't have a set time frame on this. We want to see how it evolves and how the discussions go. And then we'll facilitate with any of those groups.
2.5 hours.
I mean, it could be really quick. Okay, so we're good. We'll go to the respective teams. So blue team is Councilmember Mahaffey, blue and gray. Green team is Gilbert, Ziegerman, and Lees. Yeah, that's right. All right, got one.
Rachel, nice.
Sean.
It's up to you. Y'all can join if y'all want.
I think.
I open to,
Thank you. Oh.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, I'm right, right there.
Yeah.
Well, it was fired to accomplish quickly. See what it's the change to say, famously, somewhere around 2, I'm waiting down, below that, they have great. I also would be. I would appreciate hearing. Or like 2 and 4. You know, there are ways that we could. I see. Next year, just like all of them.
I actually more feedback.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it.
If you want to put things.
Nice to buy.
Yes.
Picture of that.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I sponsored the lot. Yeah.
Not that anybody said you're energy, but they're.
The camera.
And then that's this.
The magic strip, right?
So now we're going to take. Clearly see what they, and if there's anything on that. This is more detailed. Target. We can. In doing so.
Taking away.
So, one thing that I want to talk. You know. Here's all the things.
I know.
Already the right thing. That we haven't,
Reevaluate that.
we haven't reevaluated this. How much can I go down? All this, okay, and go. Without really looking at, okay, I'm gonna record.
Yeah, you can talk.
We optimize and two back out. Here we are, set down.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's no, you may.
Yeah, but if you're sure that it's gonna get, don't force, square peg around hole, but if there is line that says, hey, you just take on a little bit of those on taxpayers right now and have coverage, it will pay off your efficiency. I just feel like we have some other reasons, whereas corporations on order roles there. Yeah.
What? So we have, the next question would be, well, we probably charge you for something. What I would say is.
Is this correct?
If we go lower grade, yeah, the next seat.
But you can say it's kind of fill out them. You go down. You're looking at. If you convert that, right?
If we have 1.75 to 2.25.
So we would absolutely try to.
And if I was saying your guy. Like. Here's what we got, 7 checks. And here's what it's saying. Sorry, I think.
Because we're seeing. It's very clear. You can hide that.
You guys were one of our. Yes.
Now I think.
Oh, it's out. What does that do for all? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine, fine, fine.
John, what are you telling me?
Anything doesn't call it. Where we are.
It should not.
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, you guys can say that. That's already tough. I mean, I'm really trying to put up.
Yeah. Okay, you're going to get it. You're on the way. Make sure we get it. You guys are. So, try to be here. Try to see. First, start out with Mark. And here's what the hard work with the only way that they is the first way. It makes it very clear. But I didn't see right now. We have our I don't be absolutely right. I believe that would be we have a reservation for that. The next report that might be within. The money was changed. All the water was the same. How much? Yeah.
One thing that I think we're gonna, I would like to be able to tell all of us. Really irritation. But it's not, I'm. So I think it's a single number swap. Living here, job on TV, it's just one point of practice. I would say, oh wow, why are we reading this abstract? I've seen the effect in my life. Versus the facility. So, is there?
She's worried.
I'm trying to.
Have a nice day.
I'll get back with you guys project.
Yeah, so what about?
Appreciate that.
We'll get that.
Yeah.
Those are additional things. Hey, great, but these are the costs. So that's what it was.
I want to go over what you want to go.
So.
Renovations that for total do not. License. Let's take a. No office call, new park. We already are. We are. So all the five, we got five. A lot your certification. Well, you know,
Or even again, basics, you don't need, 10-page, white paper, literally, this helps because it allows us to expand by X. Or security, or whatever, and then allows us to better defend expenditures like that.
And tell me this. So. Yep.
I think this is kind of the.
I think we're all 6-year-old, that's absolutely, I mean, that's a thing I'm.
I was just.
I think this is what I say.
We have.
Say fine on, there's no necessary change. That's
That's the bulk.
And you just go free and swan, and that's the swan. You have to do that another time. You have all.
Plus, it's a little conscious, not even, it's not. It's a little. It years. Yeah, that's amazing. That's something that would be pushed on, so. It's a little bit.
Now, when you think back, on this federal operation. So, when.
We have those things.
It's, police got a background, it's not.
Sure. They have to see what they use. Okay, so they're gonna be, what, we do have that level. People A had 120 contacts.
And so.
Too much. I want to get in. Yeah. And there's. My next part. Ratio, like Mark. So you gotta get. Same as whole. This, that's our, so we're in the second one, you know, there's a strong number. And so we don't really. I want people to sell in school.
Overall.
It may be some counter to. Sure. But you don't do that. Last 2 years. Just yeah. Yeah, okay, maybe this is similar to point maybe the other side, which is in fact harping on the communication story topic. Because communications better, still nasty stuff. Right? And so when I hear, as again, Joe taxpayers, I'm just living my life, whatever, and I just see numbers, county index is fine, bring the new vehicles, and I find out, especially back down when it's so. So sometimes it's not even an intent, but they in effect end up. Say, whatever. And it's good to just, again, fill that communication back by saying, that's a good point, you're right. I'm sure those police officers has, you know, on the clock, do the same thing with their vehicles. Let me tell you about the rigor that Interceptor has to handle, like, 20,000 miles. And so it's, like, there's those kind of things, I think, when people immediately see, oh, it's government, well, whatever, sometimes it chips away at those. So, that's the part. What we talk here. Okay, so I don't have this. Is there a stop? We can just tell it, that's actually, yeah, we need to be present. Let me just say, this one, it is extremely worth the while. Apply the people around the team, it's just strong. They can take a shot started, they can take their one to their cost for the one selling. Yeah, they say, budget. So I think the firm is also Charles.
We're sharing more information. So but how we got to get to that? That's okay.
We're getting this one.
Yes.
That would be, that's only.
Within this page. What you see there. Hey. Take this in. That is starting point. You never look at. Okay, you got your answer, we're good with this. You already know about the.
But I think it's really maybe. More votes a little bit. Even whether that's not.
Already cut.
That's all I'm talking.
Here's my building.
So I also shoot big stretch.
Kind of just a parcel. Maybe they should buy out every current policy.
Beyond just like.
So those are the three things. Structure is control. Not much control, but.
In order to make a proper statement, right? You need a six for that. So what is that intended to special? And you bear in mind, United States have intended over the small. So how we can also. So it depends on the achievement. The officers for us and the board. So, and so now, and oversee two sergeants. So with this lieutenant, there's pretty one lieutenant that has all of traffic safety, all of the resources, all of it's all around, especially. It's overseeing 4 sergeants, 30 officers, 32 officers. He's also leading on full duty every special day. So there's a significant span of control in there, and one of them, 2 of them are most sensitive spots in my area. So it's over there on special. I just we have 5. Yes, and those are but that's, that can be the one. The one, 2 great goals. Take that one. I think that would be my. That the span of control of the university. These are first sergeants or supervisors. Not managers like working days. They're managing their own workload in terms of their use and just first students and policies and that's their work. And they're overseeing like their sergeant is on the ground working supervisor, frontline watching vehicles here, taking that and something where it's a shift to secure day actions and make sure. So I would say that the span of control for like 2 squads is pretty standard. So it No, that's after. The reason the promotions are actually skewed on screen is because of the. I'm not. Well, moving to the 6 squads and 12 versus 4, it's a big shift. But there is no study on this anywhere you can find. It says what we were doing before, the modified response schedule is squad to sustain. It breaks cops and highlights forces. So there was really, in my view, no option of 6, and that created the need for 2 more sides. And then the fact that we're going to just trade most of the last 2 years. Before we go to the point, sure some session. I think I said in my office, I really like this sort of come out there. Questions. That's what creative looking like. You just add these things, I guess. So we just ran an external it was wildly successful by any standard. We had 30 applicants from outside, all highly qualified positions were processed. We had 3 vacancies, 1 layer non-term, next one up to the female lieutenant Durham. So Georgie Barker. Next one, which will be lieutenant could talk about here, is going to a black female captain from the state. So I don't have the ability to crucify the command staff. I don't have female sergeants. I don't have sergeants. No way to do what we want to do. Besides going outside. So we just did it. Wild success. These aren't people being chosen because they checked the guidelines. These were the best candidates, and they happen to help us first. So just at least some context in terms of depending on the job form, it doesn't have to. If you have to come after something, or anything, but I would say. An extra 4 quarters of the CIP is to allow a case for homeless to go to standards to on our road. Something has to go to policies and has to be these improvers. Yes, you agree.
You're at,
That's.
everybody got it.
Well, the county commission said.
I would just put that. Keep on track of that schedule. Oh, yeah, your schedule will take up 4 more hours.
Well, the other things on the agenda are. So you have.
Yeah. So this, I really like to put on the one. So you're. Okay.
So here up is the one. This is the extra. Six at the bottom.
But. So this is we're 1 hour radar.
There's just. Yeah. One is. The other. You had site control. Legal. So. You mean, basically, you mean the full,
I mean, okay, so.
It's always not just about. Sure. Sure. There's one clarification. Make sure that one is yes, it's that, but also.
So you can say that. You reduce that. Sure. Reduce that. That your priorities could be, okay, we reduce, now what happens if we take this, well, how much do we reduce?
But did that property was solid, I think.
Worst would be. About the body, it's just-
That's an example.
It's barely better than my.
Yes. Where the line numbers. It's before. Just.
Look at this.
That's fine. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have thought.
I think I can be the one. For now.
It was all the stuff.
Right now, it's all. Makes sense. So, we got to finish. Some of these, but they go one people. Sorry. I mean, you don't need to. So we're trying to work for numbers. You don't have. You get the reconcile. One that. I know it's not my the operating model, but I would like 5 years that being built with projections on the business framework. Yes. So that is one thing I think is easier. It's totally sell without maybe say this is it's actually it's in this place is what's going to hear. So this, I remember this, I remember when we went through it. I'd like to know how much was it, changes, takes breaks. That's different from, hey, oh yeah. That's different from what's. Yes. So that's what I'm saying, so what that looks like. One of the reasons I'm going to speak about this. But it's my understanding is the tour. Wasn't saying we're only a business project. More than 70% in the month that you're able to get everybody's data. Or from people who do not. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that 1.6 million dollars has a direct correlation between the amount of time we exploring SC.com website. Advertising, I realize we. But, some folks may, so I'd like to see it specified. Two. Because eventually it has to make sense. And granted, there's only times when it really goes down. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was trying to, yeah, but if you have other things to say about that. Oh, yeah, I know it may be only one page, but I don't see it. That is a mess. And that's not good. Granted, it's only on the time of day with it, it doesn't happen as much in the market. But that's just an example. So if you couldn't be able to justify that with suggestion of what happens. It makes sense. But I'm going to go through a project. Yeah. The last thing I was going to say was, I told you about the business case of like the information. Yeah, I think I'll stop. No, this, on this right here is. We're gonna talk about it. You have to say that's your information. I would say, this is when someone. So that's just one thing I can say. I don't know how. It's large.
Yeah.
I'll stop and just say, I support you, but I think I can switch it. I would be okay with reconsidering because what, how I saw this, was very much binary, it was either a penny or zero. And I didn't really know that, and I assume, but I, well.
There's only two, there's two positions combined.
Then the list of officer sheets. He did this,
You wanna go after this? Right?
They're gonna get, I think you're doing six.
Phase one, let's just see how this goes. Second phase.
Questions about.
Yes. I agree with that. Like, it's gonna be, it's not a long.
Now, you know, so.
Just wondering whether, tell me if it's complicated, like what, here's how I'm thinking. I'm looking at the fundings that we have earlier, I'm looking at the IT innovation, smart cities, they don't 25%. I'm looking at $734,000 tax credit. And I'm wondering how that went actually back. To your point about innovation. Where, but I know there's a two separate buckets, you're sitting there looking at it. So help me study. I'm sure tell that.
There's a problem.
Just that one. But if you have a new, just end of the road.
She's like, somebody. Now I'm curious.
Oh, it's not that. What was it yourself?
We're just thinking of this as prepayments. We're not gonna.
Some of the so sad.
Dave.
Yes, they want to put that. It just the days. Overrun. I can say how. I'm not leaving this slide.
Yeah, it's on the CIP, but it's not. Yeah.
I'm actually in Grand.
So, no.
So right now, look at things.
Yeah.
The next thing out.
I'll say, but unfortunately, this is. Within 20 years. There we go. Right. Experience. And those oh, I would just have to very safe.
So. I think
yeah. She was a little bit more. Right. Yeah, she didn't try to good point. This.
Anybody?
Yeah. Which is another here, my.
So you got another. But why do we get $2 million? But
Yeah.
that's a non-starter, right? Because okay, we might not be able to build this to top line, like everything would be at both. But we are able to dedicate some refine, right? That's based.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do it all at once and get it done. So saying, okay, like what's kind of the base, like, it's just replacing the people. Translate it. Right, or do we need to go all in and rent the whole park, and really do this, facilities building in there? Okay, so.
Obviously, and then I'll start talking. We have a playground renovation. Plans follow. There's two other parts. One is renovating. Rest of the beaches are really not. It's fine for that. You have to be, they have corporate time.
There's one more year cost us extra money.
I'm gonna talk about we're playing.
And so you're out for it. I'm sure that they get. They're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Is it all right?
Right, so just because playground. So, okay, what can we do financially to volunteer or? Right, and then, some of this other stuff, like we do this kind of layer in, just change the top. To, but everybody to bring something together. Right, so that's kind of interesting. Opportunity.
So many things.
States commission.
So, one, I'm losing.
You're saying that you're getting R1. It's supposed to.
We've been waiting for, we've been talking about it. I sent something to do work for small. Are they in?
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, we have town residents there.
Hey, Richard. I'm not sure. Having all those. Bring them back in. On the scale. I mentioned it.
It's nice.
Yeah, we recommend by you and then, look at all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not on the day after.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. This.
I think care of it's just like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you tried, it's over by.
What is that?
Asheville Avenue? Yeah, 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 it used to be like. Yeah.
It's good.
I feel like there would be space on over here.
Yeah.
I thought working out. It was different.
Yeah. I love that.
I mean, it was very different. So. One, there's different locations. Yeah, yeah. That's the lead. That's the lead. There's the one thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. It's fine. And it's not a great cost. I don't like the the long part is not. It has more. I don't remember. We like. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, it seems like. Yeah. Yeah. It's like every other one, we go. Every other time. Yeah. 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 Have you tried that? There was a shot last year. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just looking.
They live right on the
Get Costco before it is like. Your firefighters. Yeah. Just a recap, make sure you work. That's why it's. Yes. I understand. I think you're going in, the only reason, especially in the post-COVID era, when you guys see kind of reconsider quality of life, you may have people willing to take a pay cut. Yes. One of the many guidance was. Yeah, me too. So, I'll say yes. There wasn't.
Yeah.
Respond to that. Well, we haven't had, so let's put that. So are you interested? I do. We already made those.
Well, I mean, he's tweeting. Smaller.
Short, go back. So I think we should leave it wide. Yes. If we do it. Very something. There's some adjustments in there. Efficiency.
Yeah.
One thing that.
Well, she said she needs to. Well, Jenny is so wise. Yeah.
He's a healthy.
Yeah.
On the work side, I get that.
What? I ran.
Immediately, she's. Yeah. Very easy. A nice thing.
She said, Tim.
You did good. She said, all right. You married him.
Yeah, and I told her.
You can see it.
Right. And so.
We can down for it.
Oh, yeah, because they told her. She's like. Yeah, well, now. Yeah, right. We'll see.
Of course, it's him. What did they get down to? Oh, no. They got down to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, or this one. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. Okay. Right. Right.
We also.
He's like. Right. She is just like. Yeah, and Halloween is, the simple group shop. Yeah. I mean, we did. Exactly, that's. Right.
Of course, I keep thinking, like, yeah, we also.
Lots of girls like to be.
She is all over.
So nice. On Sunday, you can actually take. It's cool. It's not. Sitting there. On their book. And I don't have to read. They don't sell food. They sell, like, more direct. And the vibe. No, but I'm just saying. Yeah, you're right. Not going there. It's one there like Sunday, it's like tonight.
I'm sure.
Then right next door.
Like, that would be. So usually it's still. You go like drill down to the apartment. And you go down to south. And then you go like across the apartments. It's rolled across all the parts. And that's 30%. Base is 40. IT is
I'm trying to. We're gonna do it the same.
like,
Not really gonna have it. Sky.
The area of the apartment, this is all.
But it's the same that
That's what this.
and now I got to go to that bar and hang out. See what.
Also,
They have bubbles and rocks. On Sunday? No, I haven't gone yet. We love trying to stuff. Or something like that.
Yeah.
He's done with sound.
That is a salary.
All of that.
All right, we're back in session. We turned it back over to Husband.
All right, thank you. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the activity so far. We were able, I'll speak for the blue group. We got to a pretty good consensus point. There are a couple of nuances, and we tried to indicate that in the boards, and we can talk about that. I don't know how the green group went. Sean, you want to talk about how your green group went? Wow, maybe not so good.
No, we had good conversation on it, but it's always, it's very complex. When you get to this point, there's a lot of complexities and a lot of nuances that require further discussion. And knowing that that's a small group with a larger group, so that's what we're coming with. We were able to get to a kind of a general idea if we want to be in this area, we can get more great. And so there's a couple specifics on those numbers, and then a lot of just then here's our general priorities of what we want to make sure we maintain or what we would like the staff and management to look at and come from there. So I think that's where we got to.
So maybe we'll go through now. I'll start because I'm on the side, I'll go on the right. And the way our group ended is they wanted us to ultimately put forward, we can talk about next steps, put forward 3/4 scenarios. 3 that are more practical than 1 I think is demonstrative. So on the blue team, we had tax rates. They talked about a 1.75. They talked about a 2, and then talked about 3, where current budget is, town manager proposal. So we worked to try to get down to 1.75, and there were some very specific things, and then there was discretion that was given. Go forward. So how we got there first was reducing the additional penny to the SIP, reducing that by 1/4. That got 500,000. There was the additional push to do an additional fund balance of 500,000. So that's about $1 million there. There were some specifics brought forward about IT to software cuts, and we consulted with our IT department, and we believe we have a targeted cut that we can make in that area. So that was 1.1 million in specific reductions. And then there was an add to the budget to pull a project forward that was in the SIP, but with that design forward, it's $100,000. So the thought was that we would take that 100,000 not from the SIP funding, but would bring it out of the additional fund balance. So we've got that as an add here. So altogether about $1 million on that section, which and leaves about $1.5 million delta to get to a 1.75 tax rate. The specific guidance we got was look at our vehicle replacements. It wasn't, hey, take PD from 25 to 15 or 25 to 20. It was take a look at those vehicles. We'd like a reduction. We'd like our vehicles to last longer. So it was just in general, look at vehicle replacements. IT smart cities, again, comments there of not taking all of it out of that smart city bucket, but could 700,000 be 500,000? Taking a look at what that would be. The next was the legislative program. There was a little bit of debate on this. There was a specific proposal put forward that one of the 2 clerk positions relates to the legislative program. So one of the proposals said cut that position as well as the other, specifically the legislative. One said cut that position. Then another proposal was look at the lobby contract and cut the lobby contract. So there wasn't, I don't believe, a consensus in our group on which of those was the better option. So we summed it up as somehow it impacted the legislative program financially, whether it be the position or the lobby this contract. Then the last piece was looking at positions in general. There was specific guidance on, like I said, related to the clerk's office. There were two positions that were specifically talked about. There was not a consensus on the two in our group, but it was then positions in general. In addition to those two, look at 4 to 6 from the general fund. And it was discretionary, not prescribed what those would look like. So anywhere from 4 to 8 positions would be in that area to explore, and not just cuts, but it could also be a combination of delays. We're bringing those on board where it makes sense. We always talk about if you fund something for half a year, you got to remember next year you got the full cost. So we wouldn't want to necessarily do that, but where it makes sense. We've got a couple of ideas on positions where it might make sense, where it won't naturally come online until January, so you would plan it for half a year. So this category included giving us discretion to find some of those as well. Anything, did I sum it up right from our group?
Good.
So I'll go over this real quick, and also in you saying that there's some specific points that we didn't catch up here in the cities, but that definitely align with what y'all said, and I'll point those out. So I also want to say that as much as I want to, but then wants to do great things, they didn't complicate it by adding something back into the budget. So not just this point. Again, yes, the group was open to a reduction in the SIF. They had specific projects that they knew that council as a whole would want to talk about, but they were open to, to half opinion part of that, understanding that it affects the full 5-year CIP. But definitely open to, and they identified a few projects in there. We don't have to put there's a discussion on that they had projects on. So, but a $0.005, that was a penny for us. So that brought us from the 3 down to 2.5. They had a target of at least 2 as this kind of ceiling. If you go under, that was great and more. And then within the other new buckets, there was some discussion about the supervisory PD positions. If that became part of it, that was potentially another course. So at this point, we're down to 2.25. And so that was kind of so trying to get a little bit more. Then we got the general direction, Randy, like you mentioned. And that was look at some of the other new positions. So the other new positions that are in it, there's total outside of public safety, you're looking at 700. So what do those mean? But it wasn't just necessarily a this cut, and those are important. So in the existing positions, which I think aligns with what you just said, do some offset, right? Do you not fund some of the existing ones? And that would be up for us to kind of come back and look at from the management standpoint. And then making sure that whether it's positions or anything else, that council understands what's being taken away from the budget and what the impact of that is on services and programs. Because it's what they want to make sure they're aware of for priorities, which you see the priorities up there: maintaining infrastructure, payments, maintaining employee benefits. Obviously, the maintaining infrastructure, make sure you don't have long-term costs, paving, things like that. Public safety is a high priority. Any commitments to public safety already made. The budget were not. They don't really. That's not for discussion at this point on what we got. The legislative program did come up. I think it was very similar to your discussion. There was a full agreement on it, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But it did come up in there as part of the positions piece. Also on the IT smart cities, there was a discussion about we need to know more about what these exactly are, so we can know what the communication is. So it wasn't necessarily saying cut this, but it was an understanding of what does this mean, because there may be room for discussion on do we keep these programs in or these projects in. That's smart cities legislative things that aligned with what they said. So Mayor, Mr. Reese, Mr. Segment, did I miss anything?
Just look confused. Look at these positions. That's it. Talking about that as far as consensus.
Yeah, it wasn't consensus. I want to be clear. That was just a specific note. It was brought up, but it wasn't necessarily hey, we're yeah. So anything said. I mean, there's discussion about all that. I don't want to say that anything was said. They're all all 3 with this, because it was a mix of what's there. It was just part. It was open to a discussion piece. And so that was just the number tied to that.
And then also made it clear we're not interested in saying cut this, we take that back to okay. And then the other thing I do want to bring up, I think a scenario below the 2 cents showing services.
That's right. So anything that that was important. Anything that is cut or removed from the budget, making sure that because it's in the existing budget, that means it's going to impact something that's already being done. And they want to make sure that anything that when that happened, that it came back, so all the council was able to evaluate. And that's why we talk about priorities, because we don't want to be in an endless cycle of this. Well, we have which,
One of the other things is it just a theme of, where it's not complicated, identifying where there's gradation or there's phases to something as opposed to binary. Fund this fully or is it chopped? Are there ways, for instance, what Sean just talked about? For instance, the, wayfinding 1.6, does that need, do we need all of that? Do we need it all up front? What, specificity around that? So that's what I think applies to a lot of this.
There's one more thing that's not mentioned here is the projects that are no longer specifically listed as part of the growth, like kind of stuff that's already partly completed. And then I mentioned town hall renovations in particular. Kind of reevaluate the spend on some of these programs, like what's the net benefit, right? Are we generating that new capacity for employees? If not, then maybe this is not a place to continue those investments, and we need to look at maybe diverting those investments into like a new building, right? Like the fire station offices that we're talking about, instead of continuing down the path of putting money into this building if we're not seeing a significant of what we.
and they mentioned the same vehicle.
So maybe at this point, we could talk about thoughts more, get specific. I see a hand up over there.
No, I mean, the other thing that
Oh, okay.
maybe this group is not. And maybe give you more direction for your meeting. Okay, so I think we all got an email from I asked for a budget direction with the town manager meetings to probably discuss that at need and we talked about it briefly. Or at the end of our discussion, I think it's appropriate for a group to maybe get thoughts of town managers and get discussion.
And the specifics that I know, you would jump in. We've just been approached about potentially funding a position for their office. The ask for this year would be half of year funding. So to start January. The estimate that we've got is 90,000. So then past that, the annual cost would be $180-ish thousand. I don't have anything more to share because we haven't met yet. Meeting is next week, so I'll get details, I'll get numbers, I'll get justification from them. That's what I know now. It's really a budget request.
I go back out a little bit. So Wiley sent these letters. Understanding the county. And both just moved to a model where the municipalities help fund UVA, Lee County. And he gave us some data citing the number of the caseload for ADA and how Wake County is one of the most underfunded offices in the state. And he also presented some data showing how in Mecklenburg County, this is the model they have there. Where funds are the offices. And this is the model that way could move to backfill some of the needs for prosecutors. And that's sort of the genesis of it. And the asks Apex and Carrier change. We had some the annuals. He wants it done running so that he asked in the letter. I believe would be the current whole limits implication we would be funding the ADA going forward. So
I do like to understand kind of from chief of police, like what the potential benefits to us would be in terms of like lesser wait times on cases being prosecuted. Are we seeing our officers tied up in jail when they're trying to book somebody, when because of some of these positions not being available, right? So is there not only a cost to us, but how it improves efficiency in terms of our police engagement with the prosecuting these cases going forward? Because I do think that there's a give back here that is maybe hard to quantify, but definitely should be considered.
one of the things is my understanding, the possibility of special Apex pilot program to reduce officer wait times at the courthouse, as well as considerations of other priorities that Apex has when it comes to closing the loop on some efficiencies. And how we might go ahead. The pilot program is one example of things, but you'd also like to know what other things might be applicable here.
I was gonna, just not familiar enough with the see where our police officers might tie up in it, right? And so if we were to find some additional positions, you know, along with Gary and the counties, how that would help our.
I was gonna say, and to be fair to our chief, unless he's had discussions, which is fine outside of this, he doesn't know about this from me because I haven't met with him yet, so. Deer in headlights, I don't want to be a little surprised. So I'm certain if he's got comments, he can make them, but I just wanted to let you all know that he doesn't know anything about it from us yet.
It had been rumored, that's the best. We haven't done any kind of detailed analysis of what they deserve based on the grants. Our most fundamental issues in terms of the question you just brought up there is mostly that officers are showing up in court and never testifying in court cases being dismissed or pushed along. That's the most fundamental issues. The sort of staff time is basically by going down on a court date and then never ending up testifying. So any efficiencies there would be welcome. My only ask would be, I appreciate being involved in that process. I think that it would be incumbent upon us to ask for some metrics as to what is actually being changed, what's happening. Is it going to result in increased filing on cases, more collaboration on major cases? What is the actual goal besides us providing money to have people to your side?
Yeah, and then what's the baseline, right? So even if there's no goal, just yeah, like if we're here today, right? Wait time that we do for a year or two, like, you know, decide on this position, at least have a measurement of how things have gotten better because of those for the position.
So you'll have this conversation on the 14th
Next week.
and then you'll be reporting back or you'll tell us the readout is, and I imagine you'll have a conversation with the chief.
I asked you to meet with. Is there any legal concerns?
We haven't even had an opportunity to speak.
It'll be the first time hearing of it, so I have thoughts, but I just like to reserve them.
Okay, good on that issue. All right, so the next is kind of how you all would like to proceed. So in our group, there was direction to prepare scenarios, like I said, I think it's officially 4. So there was the 1.75, 2 scenario 3, and then for demonstration purposes, one that had a 0 increase in taxes. What would that look like? So those were the 4 scenarios, given the guidance that we have here. What I would, if we can go with what we got, but there are some inconsistencies, big picture wise, between the two. As an example, reducing the SIF, it's not a 3-0 in our group, it was a 2-1. And then you all also had reduced the SIF, and there's about a double. So I think you were reducing it by half a penny, we reduced it by a quarter. If there can be some consensus on that, or if you're not ready to, that's fine. But if there can be consensus on that, that's a pretty big swing of $500,000 difference. Doesn't mean we won't look for different things, but as we dive into operations and try to find additional dollars, $500,000 is a big change on what I'm looking for. So maybe if we could have a couple discussion points, that's one I'd like to bring up.
My thought is that you would be able to incorporate that swing as you prepare each one of those courses for us. Because I think if there is, if to get to 175, the only way to get there is by having a 500. I think that's something that should be considered into it. It's like, here's how you get there.
So obviously in the 3 option, it's as is.
Yeah.
The 2 option, maybe the 500,000, 75 would be the full million. Or half. Seem like shake your head no.
No, I mean, I'm not comfortable with any option. council over the last 2 years to sort of set a direction here, including most recently at our January work session, how the SIP was investment community, how we were trying to separate out the tax rate between capital spending and dedicate funds to that and our general operations and stuff. It is tough, and you have to start and dedicating funds to, and this is going to savings, like this is stuff that's going to a bank. And going in the future, it'll be kind of isolated. And I just, I feel like, you know, at the first budget cycle where things get tough, start pulling from it, I get signed. There's some pain, but the idea is to do a steady state, making significant work, consistent capital investments. So we have a realistic schedule of what we're doing in the future. And that's what we did in January. We lined it up. We agreed in January to a 1 cent increase related to our capital investment. We have a 5-year schedule now for the first time since I've been here. It's actually realistic based on that capital investment. So I don't agree with the decision to revisit that and reduce the state contributions.
What I would like to see is that we pull all the capital investments out of general fund, put it all through the capital improvement plan, and adjust the SIF funding accordingly, right? So, because we basically set 7 cents aside for the stuff that we're presenting as capital plan improvements, but then there's capital investments that are hiding kind of in the general, right, like replacing police people. So it's, to me, it's not an entirely complete picture. And so I would like to see this view where that's all kind of bundled together. The 7 cents goes to 10, 11, 12 cents, like whatever that is. And so I think what we're talking about here is really the extra penny that we said in January, we're going to add. Now we're saying, okay, we're going to pull back on that a little bit, and that's going to obviously impact what we can fund in the next couple of years. And I'm willing to consider that. I think we should consider that. And then, the choice becomes ours to say, okay, the projects that we need to set aside, right? How important are these for our community in the next 5 years, right? Or can some of this be recently deferred while we still maintain the principle that we've set up, which is spending money inside it for efficient long-term community investment. So I don't like this, right? But I think it's if that's what it takes to get to a 1.75 or 2 cent scenario, then I think realistically.
Yeah, actually, I think that the quarter of 1 cent is good. We two projects away from that our state department investment, and those two are not urgent. And I think we can afford to do it right now. But I don't agree we take any further. Like Terry said, we need to see long-term picture, right? To provide service and provide a better life for our residents. So we need those projects.
And so can I ask what project you guys took off the table? Because we haven't really compared them.
One is the solar, the townwide solar, we decided to wait, not do it this time. Another one is, where's the other one? Yeah. Yes, this south. Yeah, the Peakway Southwest, widening, yeah.
So we had some debate and wasn't full agreement on the debate finding, like 1.6 million for the debate finding. Was in favor of it, to bring more tourists into our downtown area in particular. But there was also some agreement that maybe it doesn't need to be only in 1.6, right? Or if we move it half that, right? It still means objective, right, but maybe not go for cap.
I just want to clarify to people listening, like we're talking, we stop talking about this year's budget, we're talking about the 5-year SIP, right? 5-year capital plan. So these projects that we're all talking about, we're not scheduled to be done this year anyway. They were talking about putting them from our 5-year, which means it would be more than 5 years out, it'd be future. And also the numbers are different. So a penny in our tax rate would save us $2 million this year. Rather, it would be $2 million less dollars for the general fund budget. But when you're talking about the SIP and the capital investments, my understanding in our debt model and the way this all works, penny is about $24 million worth of investments. So if you want to cut a penny out of our contributing to our SIP, you have to cut $24 million of the projects. It's just hard, you know. We've already cut this, that was our size in January, but it must be let me get down to this list.
So the scenarios, you're right, the 500,000 translated to about $6 million for the two projects that Councilmember Moon mentioned. So then for the green team, your $1 million equates to about $12 million project.
So look, why didn't you take one?
Yeah, so this was just to level set on what happened in January. There wasn't an option to do, 0 pennies, half a penny, 3/4 of a penny, penny. It was just tack, and it was a great exercise. There are concerns just around. Okay, let me flip it back to your point. And I don't think anybody wants to cut, right? We want to do all these projects at minimal cost. A theme of at least what I was espousing was the use case, and like my grandpa used to say, and I was mentioned what the town here. And so what can we do if we're able to justify this penny? And it, again, probability, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow or a year or 10 years from now. However, we're looking at probabilities of like, hey, going ahead and investing in this now is an efficiency for the future, in year 2 or year 3. Those are benefits, but what we initially started looking at, and so you're right, if pulling out the Southwest connector, I thought there was more than just a reconsideration of weight cut. Could be right, wrong, maybe I need to see that more again.
What we did went back to January, census on.
Yeah.
Differences, there's tiers on this.
I was gonna say, most of the consensus, or I think the consensus is on there appropriately, as it cascades down for the next consumer.
I mean, the blue team took the Southwest connector and solar, we took Southwest connector and wayfinding, or at least reduction in wayfinding. So we should come out around the same. So I'm a little bit confused by why one team comes out with half penny or a quarter penny.
Yeah.
And we come in with half penny. So that doesn't seem to, well, I think we need to relook at this, the math here. I will echo Councilmember Anthony's point that, okay, we are trying to set ourselves up for having basically a war chest, for these large investments that they're now in the and part of that is big maintenance projects, to protect our existing investment and services. Part of that is add new services that we'd like to have to the community. And by doing it the way that we're doing it, we kind of prevented seesawing of expenses year after year, right? Because we're building up this funds for debt services that we know through our debt modeling gives us a pretty steady state of how much you can spend project money every single year. So I think that concept is great. I think it's also needed. And so my preference would be that we would look at operational expenses first, right? Because the 3% increase, but kind of assumes that everything underneath all of that is good, right? And so I'd like to double click on that a little bit more. Okay, like what can we take out into operational expenses, or tweak some of the growth in other areas before we start touching using money. Right? Say funding is eating up but it's not the one, right? And so I think there's a nuance there that I'd like to protect as much as possible, but I also want to be realistic. If there's no way of getting to 1.75 or 0, right, without touching that penny, then, you know, it's a scenario that
Yeah, what you need.
Maybe I should back up on, is there a consensus yet on the tax rate, or you guys are good with the three options? Our group came up with three. Was everybody good with the three options?
we talked about 3 as well. We talked about 1.75, 2, and 2.25. 2.25 is, you know, a little bit too rich for my blood, to be honest, right? So I love the idea of putting a 0 in there. And I don't want to, you know, have that if there are 16 different scenarios either. So if we want to stick to 3, then I'm okay. Thinking for me with a 0, 1.75, 2 cents.
Yeah, and my 2.25 is based on the case of efficiency. Spending the additional quarter penny now sets us up better for at least as far as we can see, you know, visibility of next year. But yes, what I was hoping was the 1.75, the 2, and the 2.25 with the 2, and I think the 1.75 was also show us what we're losing.
But I think that's kind of for every scenario on those 3, you know, we're going to put something out of this. So. So let's just do it one.
Is there interest at the 2.25?
Let's just do 1.75 and 2. I just point. I just want to see anticipation of not just quarter to quarter, not quarter. Just feel some kind of short term.
I mean, to be clear, these 3 courses of action that you're going to be presenting to us are going to have a lot of nuances, a lot of variations, and there's going to be variations within those. Once we get what's behind the numbers on those, there may be room to say, all right, you know, we went from 1.75 to 3, maybe 2.25 is the magic number. But what you're providing to us are courses of action so that we can be able to have a tangible conversation and say, here's what we're losing, here's what we're gaining, here's what we know where it's completely off the table. And that's why the 0 option is asked for, because I think there is a very real sentiment within our community that there should be a 0% increase based upon what they're seeing as being offered in other communities. But I think it's also very realistic to have a full understanding of what that really means. And I think our recognition of, hey, here's the true impact within our site picture for consideration makes a difference.
Okay. So 0, 1.75, and 2 would be the 3. In addition to the option you already have on 40, which is the 3.
I'll also point out in prior years, like the town manager has listed what cuts each one. So we've sort of swapped between them. Like, you know, we want to do this right here, but actually we like this cut down here, but we don't like this one. So swap those 2. So that kind of, the options don't necessarily have to be take it or leave it for us. We can look at the list and presumably the cut deal by the list of these credits. Maybe move between what years past and get something in.
Okay, and then, sorry, going back to SIP. I heard no cut to SIP. I heard use it as last resort.
I think, 2 cents, give us, a little bit room, right, flexibility, because, when we were talking about 1.75, of course, I love, you know, the lower the better, right? But, we are, you know, looking into cut our police, cars and equipments, you know, the police department think it's really necessary to add. So I think it's better safe than sorry when a police car actually reaches 90,000, you know, mileage. We should replace them. If we, you know, change it to maintenance, make it, you know, 120,000, for example. I don't feel comfortable, you know, because you never know the scenario when that, when one police car, reached like 100,000 and suddenly got, problem when the police, when our officers is using it, chasing the criminals, right? I don't feel comfortable put our police officers' life in danger. Did I say?
I think she's saying you can touch the Santa. Can, but last resort.
And I think you should be able to touch the SIP. I mean, when we do I know what our intentions were when we did this exercise in January. I also know that we've got a different site picture now today. We also, when we did the exercise in January, we did start talking about how much our base was going to be. We know what we're kind of looking at today. I don't think that when it comes to this sort of examination, we should not look at the scenario based upon the present day information we have before us. Back in January, we didn't know the General Assembly was thinking about taking away our ability to even have these conversations. We have that today. So I think we've got to have a realistic view. Don't get me wrong. I like the idea of not touching it. I think it's great. I think we have the right intention on it. Scenarios change, circumstances have changed, the environment has changed. Do we want to thoroughly move forward? Do we want to trust?
So I think impacted, but messaging team as well as possible. Okay. Next big one, ad fund balance that came out of our group, that wasn't on your side. I want to make sure we're solid on that recommendation. Knowing the implications, it's more than what we were originally comfortable with.
Right. Yeah, if we are decreasing the tax rate, some of the items that are eligible for fund balance, like replacement police vehicles, right, that have a revenue source, with the increased property tax, we could reutilize for some additional fund balance and still be within our.
So everybody good with that suggestion? Okay.
We've got our policies, right? And so as long as we stay within our policies, then, okay, pulling a little bit more reserves as needed. But also don't think that this is a pretty alarm fire that like we need to go over 25%, right? And they start trying to do that. Well, 20 is the minimum, 25% the range. And I think that even with the draw on the fund balance as proposed, we were still staying above 25%.
No, once you take into consideration, because the fund balance number presented, that is as of year end last year, right? So since then, we did 3.8 million with the new budget, and we've done 1.2 million more in budget amendments. And you added what we're thinking at year end plus what we're initially recommending, that this would give us, I think it's about $600,000 above our 20% policy.
We'll go down to the bottom of it.
I think we have an obligation, like, this is not savings for, projects so much, we have special funds for that. This is tax money we've collected, property taxes that people get in this. I think we have a policy range, we should spend it to at least policy, level. And, the other thing to think about is that this went back to the SIP thing, is we split up the general fund balance into the capital investment fund, the fund balance, what we used to calculate it several years ago. So if you add them back together, our percent fund balance is like massive. It's like, it's probably 35% something. Or should be a range. But like, the point is, the money in the SIP no longer counts to our fund balance. And it used to. So that's why 20% today is a lot different than 20% 4 years ago, because 4 years ago, our fund balance also held the capital investments. My
intent is to actually put more money into the and not have it on one card.
Yes.
But I want to do more of that because there's still capital expenditures in the general.
Okay, I think one thing to think about is the SIP covers projects that are on the care up to so on. So I think in the police cars, I think you mentioned is a good one, because that's
So is the streetscape for the main. And that's being up to selection.
Good conversation.
Okay, next one, just hitting it real quick. IT software and adding core banks, those are pretty much the dollar amounts interchangeable. Expressed a level of not complete discomfort. She did say it would be easy and we're giving something up. Right. So there's a software reduction we can make and then you can add in the core banks. Any objections to that concept? Okay.
So just where would the 100,000 come from? Would it come out of the 750 smart city or what the separate, like more operational production?
That was separate.
Software.
Okay, so those were the identified cuts. Anything else you want to get specific direction on? Round numbers, and I know it may not be there, but fund balance, 500,000, SIF potential, maybe 500,000. So the gap, we were at 3, and if we go to 2, that is $2 million. So there's potentially $1 million. So yeah, it's 2, 2.5, 6 million for the 3 options. So 2 million if we go down to 2, 2.5 if we go to 1.75, and 6 million for the 0 tax increase. So the 6 million, we'll figure that out. Pretty much everything new, maybe some other stuff. The 2 million and 2.5, we've got clear direction on about $1 million-ish, and then the rest will be operational compliance. Is there anything that you want to give direction on, or you're good? Okay. All right. So then next steps. How would you like this to come back? We've got a couple of different options. We are set for potential adoption on the 28th, which is our public hearing. It's this month. We had on the budget calendar a work session for June 2nd. I think we had one. And then I also believe I saw on the calendar, maybe it's a hold or potential on the 21st of this month. So you could say, hey, we want you to do this, bring the options back on the 21st. We want you to do this, bring the options back on the 28th. Or some other combination.
Bringing it back on the 21st, because if we do get to the exercise where we're like, we like your cutting of this, but we don't like your cutting of this, can you switch swap those out of each of the courses of action? It gives us at least that conversation towards this.
So real quick, I just want to speak to some timing and logistics issues. So, we can accommodate some of those meetings, but we'll have to understand that. The public hearing, if the public hearing is still the 28th, we need to notice that public hearing 14 days in advance. So that is next Thursday. That has to be noticed. Now, we can notice the budget as is, and then you just understand you're going to have these workshops, which is fine. Everything that you're working off is still going to be the one that's already been presented. And then you're likely not going to adopt at May 20th. It's going to have to be after that, because you're going to need to talk about all these other changes at that public hearing. And you obviously have community input as well. And so then the final would actually be June. So that would just understand that, or if there's direction for you want to have a different starting point that staff can make an adjustment to, and that can be what's posted as the public hearing document next Thursday as well. But that's a lot of work time with staff, and that's we can do it. Please don't recommend the 0 one for that, because that won't happen before then. Just like this we won't have the time to do that. But anyway, I just want to point out the logistics of that and have an understanding that next Thursday we've got to post. This budget's already out there, but the one that we officially noticed as the public hearing has to be done by next Thursday.
So could we make changes to the public hearing post document, even minor ones, or we have to repost it and we do that?
The dollar amounts can't change.
The dollar amounts, they can change, but they won't officially change until you have the public hearing. Like, you can give direction and everything as we go, but the one that's going to be discussed at the May 28th, anything you discuss at May 21st is going to have to come back. You're going to have the same discussion on May 28th. Because if you're making changes to that budget, so at this point, the numbers can't really change. You can change the numbers at the public hearing, but the document that the public is speaking on is what everyone is posted at with the hearing there.
So you could present it
Yeah.
with influence by the 21st. Say, hey, we all met on the 21st, at the 28th meeting, this is what we changed. The public would then receive those, but they would have reviewed it based on the full version, not the amended.
So I would just say, our recommendations, you need to rule out the 28th as a potential adoption. Just, I don't think you're giving satisfactory public notice and discussion if you go this route with that. So that piece, that we need to make sure you have that to make sure there's time to say, okay, here's the changes that gets discussed at that hearing.
When is the first meeting in June?
The ninth, which we're still comfortable with. I mean, it's fine. We don't want to go to the
28th.
No, you don't have to have another.
You only have to have one.
No, I'm saying, like, if on the 28th, or maybe there's a change, for example, where we would have already noticed the 9th as public hearing, then, so we'll have the 21st, we'll.
No, we still know, we're trying to get, we can still notice the 28th as a public hearing. Any changes you make as a result of a public hearing, you don't have to have another public.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm going through the Control Act, like just legally what you have to do. So once you have the public hearing, if you any changes that you decide, technically you could adopt that night with those changes directly in place. But you want to make sure you're discussing the budget that the public was noticed as received at that point.
Hey, knowing what we know, it seems a little disingenuous to post the budget as is, I'll notice that right now, and then really have a different conversation. With 28th, so going up, so I think putting it out here, right, if we notice it for the 9th, that gives us the 21st to do another session and kind of get to a penciled down situation, notice the actual plan that we're going to be discussing and intent to vote on.
Yes, so basically that would be the next option I was going to bring up is you could potentially push the public hearing itself to the night to get a different budget in. The two scenarios that kind of play out on that is there could be the expectation that we've worked on this, we've had the work session, first, the 9th is the public hearing, barring anything absolutely crazy, you would also adopt that. Because the other scenario is, depending on what kind of feedback you get on the 9th and where we go, push into the next meeting, and now we're at the June and it starts getting a little close for us from the staff side. So just keeping in mind those two things. If you do, but you can, to your point, the June 9th could be a public hearing. And then it's up to council whether you expect to adopt that thing. You start getting a little close for us and staff. So
I think that sounds good to me. I think like right now, we're talking about 3 scenarios. Maybe the 21st, we'll try to narrow it down to one scenario, we decide which one it is, and then we notice the budget based on that one scenario. And then on the 28th and the 9th, we maybe could tweak, move this item out, this item in, to kind of keep it sort of the same, but sort of like narrowing in here. Like tonight, we have some suggestions, we have scenarios. We'll try to, firm it up more on the 21st and notice the budget based on that, the 9th. And, I imagine from the 21st, there might be some more feedback you could sort of get in terms of performing that budget for the 9th. Then you take a look at it between then and the 9th, if there's any adds or removes that generally keep it in the same direction. We could do with that and either push it again, or if it's simple enough, like take out this $100,000, add this $100,000, swap out this $100,000, this. Still directionally being the same after the meeting.
So work session 21st. Then we might have something on the 28th, we might not, depending on the 21st. But
The 21st meeting,
maybe, it won't be a public hearing, it'll just be discussion items. Solve something after the 21st. And we would aim for adoption on the 9th. We'll advertise that 14 days ahead, which would be
26th.
Yeah, to the 26th. So,
but what we decided on the 21st broadly, or less than broadly, pretty narrowly what the budget's going to be. And then, the scope of potential modifications gets narrower as it goes. And then we're talking about tweaking little things.
So because we're meeting likewise, then that's okay.
Alan, do you have something?
I just need the total by that point, the mission schedule for the 26th and the latest is Friday.
The 26th.
So just
Throwing that out there as well, because we had kind of talked about the other timeline. didn't we?
So I think if council's committed to the 21st, saying here's the scenario that we check, at least total numbers. You know, then there could still be some play, accept those numbers because we advertise, you know, by the, instead of all with the number. Council commits that on the 21st.
Okay, so everyone feels good about 21st, calendars are good for us. Okay, all right. Yeah, I think something else.
It's just.
Okay, I think we have a plan that needs to redo and bring back to you all. Got a little bit of work to do. We've got a time schedule. We're good on our side. Right, so think y'all. Yeah. Hearing none. Meeting adjourned.
They're done.
There you go.